through my personal experiences in the world of special ed, I myself was dyslexic growing up, didn't know it.
Oh.
You know, there were different
Wow.
tools then.
That's tough, yeah.
Yeah, and so school wasn't easy for me. And because of that, I think my high school teachers would probably be stunned to see the role that I'm in now. And that was primarily because I was not identified with my own learning disability until college, when I had an amazing professor that really was like, do you realize like this, you have this different learning style. I would freeze up on tests, and she spent a lot of time with me, and that's when I discovered that I had dyslexia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my guest today is Shar Mahoney. Shar is the Special Education Director at Yarmouth Schools in Yarmouth, Maine. Shar, I am so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about Yarmouth Schools.
So what I do, that's kind of a loaded question, because it's kind of like, what doesn't a special education director do?
Yep.
I think to fit it under one umbrella is I work with 4 school buildings to support a diverse group of students, student needs and challenges, and try to help staff provide the best level of instruction, identify students appropriately, get them the services they need, and essentially my job is to support staff so that they can give students skills to no longer need special education. I try to work with my team to never really put myself kind of above them, but work together and guide them. And my big responsibility is to just be the knower of all the laws and regulations and keep everybody on track and help problem solve. And I've got a great group. Yarmouth is a smaller school department in the state. There's approximately 1,600 or so students in the district. There's 4 schools. There's a Row primary school, which is pre-K through 1. There is Yarmouth Elementary School, which is grade 2 through 5. Harrison Middle School, which is 6 through 8. And then Yarmouth High School, which is 9 through 12. And then we also continue programming for students 18 to 22 as needed per their IEPs.
Wow. So you get them all the way from 2 to 22. Is that right?
We haven't fully absorbed the early adoption yet. That's a work in progress. So we're looking to, the year after next, take on the roles and responsibilities of child developmental services that provides the education for students aged 2 years, 7 months up to kindergarten. And it's definitely an endeavor.
Yes.
And we're really working hard so that we do it the right way. But right now we help provide services to a small group that attend our preschool and are on IEPs. So we don't have universal preschool yet.
Wow, but still a lot of things happening. A lot of plates to be spinning, that's for sure.
It is. It's a tall order. You're going to be an expert in a lot of things, and it's
Right.
definitely hard to navigate, but you've got good resources, and that's what I'm fortunate to have.
Well, and you told me a little bit when we talked before about advocacy group work that you've been doing. Can you tell us a little bit? I was really impressed with the work that you're doing there as well. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So this is my first year in Yarmouth Schools, and I love it, and I hope to be here for the remainder of my career. And
Nice.
Leading up till this point, I feel like I was given such beautiful experiences in the past few districts that I was in. I worked a town over in Falmouth for about 7 years, which has a really similar population to Yarmouth. It's a little bit bigger, and I had an amazing director that I interned under that was a mentor and showed me the ropes, and I learned a lot. I worked alongside a couple psychologists that went in deep to what does cognitive profiles mean, and what does each area and in the psychoeducational evaluation mean? How does that translate to each academic area? So I could really become well versed in those items. And then after Falmouth, I was there for about 7 years. I moved to the Portland School Department, where I was the assistant director for secondary schools. And in Portland, there's approximately 17 schools, but I oversaw 6 of the secondary schools. In Portland is the most diverse district north of Boston. between Falmouth and Portland, the experiences that I received, I don't think that there was any situation there was nothing that I hadn't experienced. It allowed me to, I've gone through legal due process. I've worked with really challenging families that were super contentious, all the way to building beautiful relationships with these families that have continued beyond my work with them in the schools. And through my personal experiences in the world of special ed, I myself was dyslexic growing up. Didn't know it.
Oh.
There were different tools then.
That's tough, yeah.
Yeah, and so school wasn't easy for me. And because of that, I think my high school teachers would probably be stunned to see the role that I'm in now. And that was primarily because I was not identified with my own learning disability until college, actually, when I had an amazing professor that really was like, do you realize this, you have this different learning style? I would freeze up on tests, and she spent a lot of time with me, and that's when I discovered that I had dyslexia. And then I dove into really the world of literacy, specifically as kind of a side. That is an area where there is most contentiousness in litigation. As we know, nationally, we really haven't been teaching children reading according to the way science says that we need to. So I dove heavily into that role, into the reading world. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, when I was working in Falmouth, that work got reinforced and I learned so much more. And then in Portland, I was able to then share some of that. And through some of these experiences, I made connections with people where I was continually being brought into some of the, we call them challenging cases, but I hate to refer to them as that. So for lack of any better word, I'm just going to say challenging, because it's families who are advocating for their child to get what they need. And there was a lot of mistrust in schools. And there's not a lot of people who are trained deeply into literacy. So I would be brought into K through 12 literacy situations where I could help explain, yes, we can meet the needs of your child, and help explain what, their child's test results meant and how we could support that. And how I went about doing that was, if we didn't have the tools and resources within the school department, I found the person who could do that, and I had them come in and provided those through contracted services.
Nice.
In Yarmouth, I am stunned with how beautiful the instruction is in Yarmouth. There is somebody trained in evidence-based reading programs in every building. So we're really fortunate to have that. So through some of this work, people connected me to, whether it was friends I would help out. They're like, hey, can you read through my child's evaluation and help understand this? And the inner little geek in me comes out, and I love reading an evaluation and not knowing this student, and then being able to talk to the parent and be like, okay, well, this score means this, and this is how they're going to learn, and so they're probably going to struggle with this, and this is going to be it doesn't look like low, but it's going to be frustrating because in comparison to their overall cognitive profile, this particular area is a weakness in comparison to themselves, and these are the things they need, and they're doing well, and almost calm that fear of what their child is experiencing is real and can be frustrating, but it also can be remediated and supported in the schools. And just knowing the right language of how to get there. And it's not something I've ever charged people for, and I get quite a bit of it on the side, and I love doing it. It's just something that brings me joy, is helping people help their kids, because I knew what it took to help my own child, and I saw the struggles she went through, and I was able to advocate for her to get her needs met, so that she could get the services she needs when she needed it, so that she could get back out and transfer those skills. I mean, she'll always have dyslexia, but she has the strategies and skills to be able to access her learning with her peers now. And that wasn't the opportunity I was given. So I just try to treat every child like I would want my child treated, like I wish I was treated. And that's why I do what I do. So kind of to bring that a little bit full circle of a little bit of the history of where I came from and what are some of my passions and how I got into that realm
And it's
of work.
beautiful. I mean, it's truly a beautiful thing that you're doing. You're giving back. And, as educators, I'm a speech therapist, as you know, and we always try to, as much as we possibly can, you learn this in school, you try to put it in layman's terms as much. But I think in IEP meetings, it can be such a high stress position for parents because they don't know, they don't understand, they're trying to get help, especially those ones that are advocating strongly for their children, which is fabulous. And we're supposed to be a team. The point of an IEP team is that parent is a huge piece of that. I mean, they're their first teacher. And there's no doubt about that. We all accept that this is their first teacher, and I think sometimes get stuck in our world, and the fact that you're willing to take that time and help parents is beautiful. That's just because it's so important. I've done it myself, not to the extent that you have, but as a speech therapist, and our pastor had a child when I was in Michigan who was on an IEP, and I reviewed it for them to help them to understand, because it's overwhelming, and what recommendations would you have to parents or to IEP teams to help them to overcome some of that? Because I know we all see it, we all experience it, but
I will be, the IEP special education process is not a parent-friendly one, which again is another reason why I do what I do. And if I could make one recommendation for parents, and it's our biggest resource and I'm sure it's the bane of every doctor in the world's existence, along with educators, is, the internet. And we have communities finding each other in social media, and they are almost in an echo chamber of misinformation. And there are for-profit businesses that are kind of touting themselves as, we will fix your child. The public school won't do it. They're basically, they're not obligated to, they won't do it. Your child is going to be on a track. They're going to have to fit in a box, but we have the answer over here. And it's ironic to me that answer has to be paid for, and they're profiting off it. I'm not profiting off of supporting a child. My goal is to make the child not need me, whereas I see some of these outside resources, some are wonderful and some are not. And I think continuing to advocate for your child, I have families that apologize for being the squeaky wheel, and I said, don't ever apologize for that. I want you to advocate so I understand what you want, and we may disagree. We're going to disagree. Through your child's education, there are going to be points we're going to disagree. But one thing is for certain, the end goal is the same. We share the end goal, but we might not see the same paths there. So listen to hear and understand instead of listening to respond is a really valuable piece of information for both myself and both for parents. If we could create that space in meetings to hear the no but, or no and, or no and this is why, or get curious, okay, well, where did you hear about that? Why do you think that can work? And kind of taking pause. And I will be the first person to say, I can't meet that need, but you're gonna know, for damn sure that I have tried everything under the power and under the sun within my resources to meet that child's needs before I get to the end and say, I can't meet the need. And I will say that, and I have. And I think I've built trust in some of the families I work with, knowing that, trust me, please trust me. It's going to take a little while to get there, but you need to trust that I have your child's best interest at heart. And so get information on your social media communities, but don't have that be the end-all be-all, and realize that it's like a game of telephone. You're in a group of people who are passionate and personal. So it's their children have a specific challenge, and they're personally invested in it, and they've talked to one person who says this is the answer. And then they take that piece of information and they share it, and then they take that piece of information and they share it. And I have been in some of those.
Distorted along the way.
It does. And then they come into meetings and they're like, well, we were told this by several people and it worked. And It's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and this is why, and just really trying to explain it. And I think it comes from a place of worry, of fear, and misunderstanding. So if I can explain and provide that hope and the reasonings why and listen, then hopefully I can start building that trust with the families. And again, I will tell a family what their child needs if I can't do that. And I see that more with students with more mental health or social emotional behavioral challenges. There are times where we have exhausted our options, and I don't think that the public school placement is the best fit for them. And those are rare situations. But again, the goal for those children are to go somewhere that can give that intensity of therapeutic programming to build skills so that they can come back and join their peers in their home school. So being with their peers in the school is the goal, and to give them everything that they need. So sometimes, there are those little outliers where we can't. And to be able to have that trust with a family when you're making those recommendations is huge. So I think that was my long answer to.
No, I think that's beautiful. I think it's absolutely, and one thing, this is kind of the flip side of it. I'm going to ask you the flip side of it. So, I've been, obviously I've been in many, many, many IEPs of mine. How do you handle the parent that doesn't want to let go of services when services are when the child's ready to be done? That is something that I have been in multiple meetings where we've kept children in speech therapy. Now I'm talking from my own experience, and I will never just say, absolutely no, we're done. But we try to dismiss children as well. And you have that parent that's just, I'm so afraid of letting go and letting my child end services. How do you handle those?
That's a really great question, because we do find ourselves in those situations, and I think it's learning how to do it the wrong way and learning how to do that the right way. And the wrong way is saying your child no longer qualifies. Boop, done. And then you're like, right. Oh my gosh, we're never going to get this again.
And that's the big fear right there. Is that if therapy stops or if services stops, they'll never qualify again, and I'll never get them again, because they've been told that as well. So
what I try to do is I encourage my teachers, as they're doing their progress monitoring, if they have the idea in mind that potentially they're leading up to a child who is getting close to dismissal, to have that conversation at least a year prior to. So you can plant that seed and really share it as a celebration. And then we have that opportunity to explain, when the time comes, this is what it can mean. It can look a few different ways. And so that conversation starting early before you get to the day. And I think when the time comes, reviewing it outside of an IEP meeting instead of dropping that piece of information within the meeting is really important, so you can review the evaluation. And then you also bring in, the forms that are the requirements that we're legally bound to follow, that are qualification eligibility forms, and really shape it into a celebration. Your child no longer qualifies, and that's a beautiful thing. They have built these skills. They're capable of learning. And at that point in time, and this isn't everybody, but my personal philosophy is to put a period of time where I move that child off of any services and I move them onto a consult. With a maintenance goal.
Done that many times, yep.
Yep, and I just say, we're going to take the services away, and we're just for like let's get back together in like 6 months, and we're going to say, so-and-so will maintain this skill for this much time. And at that point in time, if they haven't needed to access anything beyond what the teacher provides, then we can let them go. But also explaining that it's not a one-time, special education is not a one-time only. And when we really do refer to the forms, it makes it not my decision and not the team. The team can decide to continue if the student hasn't met their goal, but they don't necessarily hit the criteria. We can have those conversations. What more do they need so that they can meet their goals? So it's definitely an individualized basis, but it can take it off of being a personal decision by really falling on kind of the regulations of we're obligated to keep their children with their peers in the least restrictive environment. And we're not doing them a service by pulling them in and not allowing them to generalize these beautiful skills that they've learned. And the child too, at some point, they start to question what's wrong with me if I still need this.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
then
Why do I still
having
need this? Exactly.
the conversation with them too, and asking, having students be part of their IEPs when they get old enough to understand. It's both a liberating thing when they enter into special education, and then it's a really, something to celebrate when they're getting ready for dismissal. And that it's always there. If they start to, and we don't do a wait to fail. I hear that so much. So what am we doing? Just going to wait to fail? No, we don't wait to fail. We have mechanisms and systems in place so that we're monitoring your child at regular intervals so we can catch them and intervene. And then if they need services again, then we go back in and do some evaluations and get more information. So
I love that.
It's a lot of
the children in Yarmouth are blessed to have you there. They definitely are blessed to have you. That's for sure.
Well, I learn a lot from them. I by no means know it all.
No, nobody does.
Say that.
But you're moving forward. You're trying. You're constantly evaluating and reassessing, and that's it. I mean, it's not, and the world of education doesn't stop. It doesn't, our discoveries are there, and what's happening in the world and all of that. Anyway, I have one last question I try to ask and I think I've only missed asking one person. So this is my question. If you could miraculously solve one challenge in the school, what would you want to solve?
Big one.
Yeah, isn't it? It's an unfair question, I know, but
no, it's an amazing question because I really do. I think if I could, I don't foresee it as so much of a problem, but if I could just encourage people to keep learning about things that they don't know and to keep being curious, then we're going to continue to grow as educators and systems if we aren't afraid of change. So if I could have people be willing to take risks and do something different, even if that different is maybe scary, welcome that child into your room that has maybe, this reputation of such and such. Work with that child who has a need that you haven't worked with before. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know, and ask for help. And I hope I model that to my staff as well, because I don't know it all, and I'm always asking for help. And even if they're not always seeing it, it's, I have my resources, an amazing superintendent, an amazing director of teaching and learning, our legal team, colleagues in other districts, and the children. I learned so much from the kids.
Yeah, sometimes they're smarter than we are, aren't they?
They are. I mean, they are. They're savvy, and they keep you on your toes, and they make it so that, I always thought the line that, being a lifelong learner was this cliche that people just tossed out in interviews. And it's like, these kids require us to be lifelong learners because it is, it's a moving target.
Well, Shar, thank you so much for your time. That was such a great conversation. Where should people go if they want to learn more about you or your school?
The Yarmouth School Department website is a great place to go to learn about our school department. My contact information is there. I can share with you, if you want to put it up in the bio with the description with the podcast, my personal email address along with my professional email address. So, anything related to the Yarmouth schools. When I do advocacy work, I really try to separate because I don't want that to be given under the guise of this is the feelings and philosophies of the Yarmouth schools. It's me just helping friends, helping family. Maybe someday that could evolve to more, but I don't have any intentions leaving this wonderful district anytime soon. I see it as a place to grow and thrive. So I'd say anybody that wants to get more information about the school department to take a look at the webpage and anything that I can do to help support or share more information about special education. I am always want to learn or share, and I could talk for hours, and I think anybody can say that.
Right. All right. Well, great. Thank you again. Thank you once again so much. It's been an incredible conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on here.